good
We are
morning.
live. Good morning.
How are you?
So, I'm doing well, Cleo. It's nice to be with everyone today. And with this being the season of rebirth, I thought it would be fun to start off with sometimes what seems like chaos is actually breaking apart of an old pattern and the birth of something new.
That is awesome. I love that. Yeah, breaking apart old patterns. This is so important. I think this is one of those things that we're kind of trained, even our whole culture is trained to turn this into a drama, a disaster, something awful. That really, it's so important to respect and revere and be still and patient and kind
Yeah,
when things start falling apart.
yeah, right. You know,
Because, yeah, it is
I
this breath of rebirth is coming.
yeah, I mean, sometimes we have to sit in the pain and discomfort, um, maybe understand the wound a little bit more before we can transform it or be a part of that new experience that's waiting to emerge or come forth. I come from the tradition of Christianity, and so this is a time of where the death and resurrection was a very important part of that celebration. And I think that when we internalize this, we can experience the meaning of that by being able to use that deathing as a momentum, what we leave behind and move forward towards can really build that momentum.
I think that's even actually a part of Christian worship, isn't it? Isn't that what Lent is all about? Trying to shed something that we don't really want to keep. And didn't Jesus do that? Isn't that the 40 days in the
Yeah.
desert? 40 days of privation,
Mm-hmm.
fasting, um, introspection, silence, being with the self in the most painful environment. I think that's one of the most
Yeah.
interesting ideas. We work so hard to create like the yoga studio, right? We've got the cushions and we've got the good smells, the good smelling oils and the good smelling incense and the quiet music and the beautiful lights, and then we can meditate.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like there are monks, I guess, who meditate in the freezing cold and or on mountaintops, in caves, in other situations that are really uncomfortable. And I
Yeah.
think that's very much on purpose. I think part of that whole journey is seeking out the activity that will bring on the breaking down
And that's where
process.
we get our pilgrimages, you
Okay.
know, the intensity of that walk and the struggle of getting there is the shedding of what is old, the old pattern. In similar ways, maybe we're letting go of a habit that is no longer serving us well. And the struggle of that resisting that impulse control and
Mm-hmm.
holding back and and clinging to something new
Mm-hmm.
instead. That intensity is actually just like the pine cone in the fire releasing the seeds. It
Mm-hmm.
requires that intensity for the virtue to appear.
That is a great example, the pine cone. That is a great example. Something that stays totally sealed, and you cannot break this thing open for anything. But you expose it to heat, and it opens on its own, and all the seeds come flying out.
Yeah,
I love that. That's a great image. I wonder all these prickly pine cones that we have inside of us.
right. Yeah,
And even maybe even in a way that is part of the process, right? Part of the process is cocooning, is having the cocoon, right?
Exactly.
Around the injury or around whatever it is. And I think probably the outside of that is
And the
probably our
struggle of breaking through is what strengthens the wings, right?
Mhm.
Um, I'm also reminded too that when we are um, putting to death, putting to an end what is no longer serving us, we are prepping the mystery to be drawn to us. And that awe and wonder of that transformation is what this season's all about.
I think this is really important to look at from like what is this transformation and process like, and how can we normalize it and celebrate it, make it beautiful in all the three different ways that we exist. We have our mental,
Mm-hmm.
we have our spiritual, and we
Mm-hmm.
have our body.
Yeah.
And I think some of us get real good at processing in one department, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of us are spiritual. The logic end is like, oh God, I can't figure this out. The body end is like, why can't I let go of anything? But we've got it in the spiritual, right? Some people have it in the logical. They totally can take this thing apart and put it back together, and they know
Mm-hmm.
how to make all the gears mesh. And some people totally have it in the body realm, right? They do ecstatic dance every week. They're yoga teachers. They can't necessarily have the best words around something. They might not be able to explain it, but they can totally move energy
Mm-hmm.
with their bodies. So let's take a look at each one of these areas. And Sean, what does it look like for you when
Mm.
you're breaking something apart and ready to embrace that something new and beautiful is coming?
Yeah. For me, I'm stewing in what is painful, understanding it, appreciating it. Um, in fact, I cannot let it down. I cannot put it down until I'm finished wallowing in it. And I'm not devaluing that. I am actually raising the integrity of that time and positioning it to that next stage. That first stage we call victim. Then we move into that survivor, learning how to manage it, live with it, put up with it, tolerate it. I was reminded that tolerance is actually um, approaching what's going on with disapproval.
Mm.
And so I start making wrong when I'm ready to change. The, the old behavior no longer works for me in the same way. And once it was a very good choice and probably the top of my skill set, a brand new activity to learn from. But as I'm stepping into that management place, I'm also understanding how it's functioning, how it's serving me, what's not working. But when we move into that thriving stage, that place of discovery, that place of mystery and the unknown, we're having to let go of that certainty and stepping into that faith, which is drawing into what is there. It's already there and waiting. And we just have not detected it in a way we can make use of it. So as I'm stepping into that place of thriving, that place of mystery, that place of transformation, it is the the transitions of that cycle that gives me the momentum to take that step. And when I take that step, I'm taking it in anticipation for what's coming, and also from this place of I am ready because I have already experienced life, and life has prepared me for this. And so that preparation also reminds me that I'm in good company, that not only do I have friendships that have gone before me in this area, I have angels that I can ask assistance for. And it puts a new meaning on my struggle. My pain is now referencing an event that is bringing something to life in me that that I'm ready for, that I've been working towards.
I love that. I love that. That's such a full experience, that has elements of the mind where you're picking and choosing and recognizing and aiming and making things very intentional. It's got the spiritual with a whole lot of deep awareness of all the different aspects rather than getting hung up on, well, this is dirty and messy, therefore it's bad. Sort of this deep reverence. I love
Yeah.
that. This deep reverence of all the different parts. And then there's also the embodied sense, the sense of this doesn't come home until it comes into the body,
Mm, yeah.
until you live it, until you feel it. And even that as the process is happening, your body is going through all these stages, and even you hold witness for the body. Okay, this is uncomfortable. Okay, this is changing. Okay, the you were talking about tolerance, right? That being actually a time of setting intention. I'm tolerating this and I don't really want it anymore. Okay,
Hmm.
but I still have space to
Right.
hold that in the body, to hold that in reverence and love.
Hmm.
And intellectually, I am not going to rip it apart. I'm just going to honor that and allow
Well,
each of these has a space.
yeah.
Each
And
of
that
these has a lot of space for this process to happen.
exactly. So the spiritual part of it is the buoyancy, is the bridge, and it is the bypassing of our physical state of being that allows for something new to arrive. And then once it has arrived, then we go to work filling that in and in um, and bringing it into our behaviors, our actions, our decisions. We internalize it or integrate what is new into upgrading our skills and choices.
Yeah. I think this is an amazing topic. I love the idea that this is truly the nature of life,
Hmm.
that we get to celebrate it at Easter, we get to see the seasons changing, and we get to think about it, but that this is truly the nature of every day. And that when we can embrace this and walk through it every single day in whatever aspect of our life is asking for transformation, that is where we can thrive, where our spirit is glowing, our body is growing, our mind is challenged and excited, and that this is what joy is, that
Yeah.
joy is overcoming challenges. And that if we
Yeah.
don't have that going on pretty much a lot, then we're really experiencing stagnation.
Yeah, I think it's also adding purpose and possibilities to death. I thought it was ironic growing up that they called it Good Friday when we're talking about Jesus' death. How horrible is that? Why is it good? Well, think of the plants that are dying in the fall and that nutrients that occurs in the magic of winter and then the growth of spring as things start sprouting that are brand new. And then as they take root, they become more mature um, as the process continues.
Mhm.
And so I think when I can shift my attention from life happening to me to, I am going to take this opportunity for me to change my role and position myself alongside of what's going on and ask for its help. So what if the conditions are actually a good teacher, a friend, a guide or a mentor? Then my approach to those conditions changes, and what those conditions can produce inside of me changes as well.
I love this offer of making sacred something that is so daunting to all of us, really. Even, we have this perspective sometimes that people on the spiritual path have an easier or a better way of living. And there is, and when, when we're capable of accepting our challenges as being beautiful and positive and fertile, our challenges as being a time of breaking down and also building up, this is when it does get better. And I think in a way, we all get hooked every now and then by something that, no, this one's important. No, this one's actually catastrophic. It's like, no, we have to go back all over again and remember and hold and embrace and love that experience all over again. Wait a minute, what's happening here? Wait a minute.
What if we played around with the word addiction and said that addiction is holding on to a thought process beyond what is productive and supportive and helpful? Then we can start looking at the value of the thought process always being renewed, always being something that refreshes our perspective.
Mm-hmm. That is a great example. That's a great example. I think that addiction is the perfect example of the catastrophe that we cannot um, see the good side of, right? I mean, that is the definition of addiction. The definition of addiction is everything that shows up, I have to answer with this shield that both prevents that thing from getting to me and from me coming out and encountering it, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's a fight at home, fight at work, uncomfortableness, anything, all of our triggers are unique because they're the fingerprint of our trauma.
Yeah.
And so each of us can have triggers that to other people look ridiculous, right? I used to be terrified of getting my hair cut. And I was telling this story to somebody the other day and they just bust up laughing. I was like, wow, this is a funny story. I didn't realize it. My terror of getting my hair cut was of laying back in that seat and having a woman's bosom over my over my face while she's washing my hair. And to somebody else that was hilarious. Like, that's triggering to you? Like, wow. And so I think it's, and yet I could have gone home and taken my drug of choice, like, oh, or been like, I have to go get my hair cut. I am now going to not go unless I am under the influence of whatever it is. Each of us has our numbing thing of choice.
Mm-hmm.
I could have been like, okay, I'm going to get a beer and then I'll go get my hair cut.
I think it's important to have those self-soothing activities. It's one way that we can cope with life. And it's only when we go to the same behavior time after time after time that our bodies break down and can no longer manage the pressure that we put it under. And then it stops being soothing and then starts being wounding.
Well, I think the biggest difference between soothing and numbing is, does this activity create a barrier between me and this experience.
Beautiful.
You know,
Yeah.
soothing is supportive and
Mm-hmm.
makes it so that we can go get our hair cut when we're scared to go get our hair cut, right? Soothing is supportive and makes it so I can make it through and I can be like, oh, it wasn't that bad. And then the next time I go and I do something supportive and it's not that bad again. This is how triggers are supposed to get erased through our life.
Mm.
But addiction stops us from experiencing anything because
Mm.
it puts a barrier between us and whatever experience is happening. So
Yeah.
whether it's a painful conversation or whether it's getting my hair cut, I don't experience it.
And it
Then
also locks us
protection.
into our physical pain, where we cannot access our spiritual freedom. You know, it limits the vibration or the experience we're having. It's limiting.
That is a great point. I wonder if that's part of the reason that we get scared in this process. That the feeling of spiritual freedom is overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we're so not trained to experience that under any circumstances
Yeah.
that when it shows up, it can be overwhelming. And, we have all these ways of controlling things. And then to experience freedom, real, open, creative freedom, is so unsettling that we can just be like, I'd rather be on the controlling side.
Yeah. Well, and that tends to be a common response in our culture, is that instead of acclimating to those new vibrations, that new energy, that new experience, um, we start to push away at it, or consider it threatening, and then go back into the safety of um, what our decompression, our ways of um, numbing or self-soothing.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I think it's really interesting. When I start seeing um, the controlling side of my behavior show up, I am reminded that I am feeling insecure, that I'm scared, that I am feeling helpless, and that is a time for me to care for myself rather than to try to push through it. If I try to push through it, it's going to affect everyone around me, and I'm going to regret the decisions that I make.
That is a great observation. Brene Brown says the wholehearted, which is you, the wholehearted people are able to totally embrace that exactly what you're talking about. And that the people who are pushing away vulnerability, unable to um, let go of control, and stuck in that, the small model where we can't grow, where we can't develop. Yeah, that's perfect. I love that.
Yeah, I think that when we can break it into smaller components, then we can maybe exercise that proverbial muscle,
Mhm.
and build it up so that it can flow, it can identify or be a part of the flow that gives us that synergy and momentum.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think we're coming to the end of our time. Thank you so much. This has been super awesome.
Well, I just want to say to all of you that are going through transformation this season, to be gentle and generous with yourself, to find the support and ask specifically for what you need, and it will be granted. in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on Compassion Speak. Look forward to seeing you next week.
All right, take care now. Goodbye.